whatever you want. Okay. No, I think you love that.
Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lies all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.
So let's go ahead and sing. I invite you to rise, body or spirit. Online people, sit or stand if you'd like. So welcome to the Unitarian Church. My name is Nathan. I'm one of your ministers. Your other minister, Reverend Chris Long, is preaching at the First Unitarian Society of Madison today, which is the largest. There's like 4 largest Unitarian churches in the world, and they all claim to be the largest. So this is one of those that claim to be the largest. Glad that you're with us. There are a lot of announcements for you to know about. So let's pile right in. So during middle hour, which is between the services, those of you online, those who are local and online can drive on down for that. Some of the things we're having is our Faith in Action. Our own Holly Haymaker is going to talk about reproductive justice in Baton Rouge. And if you want to know part of the What It Means to Be UU class, we're going to have the president of this. You knew you're doing that, right? Yeah. President of our congregation is going to talk about congregational polity and what it means, just what it means to be UU as it relates to governance and the board, which is more exciting than it sounds, I promise. Coming up this Saturday from 5 to 7 is our Halloween party. It is open to everybody, regardless of the amount of children you own or have. And that was not intentional. I may have to talk to my therapist about that one. But we also need volunteers for it, specifically I think to make finger foods and some Halloween party, to make little foods that you can eat with your hands. Also, come on up, Mike. Also on the, let me see, I got a whole list. All right, on the 12th of November, we're gonna have an end to our stewardship drive, gumbo cook-off, and open mic night. And we have a special announcement on some work that's been done in the sanctuary by one of our sound booth volunteers. Mike, if you'd like to.
Good morning. Most of you know me. I'm Mike Patton. I pretty well try to shepherd all the tech stuff around here and run the treehouse team, as we call it. I have an important announcement to make. We have a brand new technology installed in the sanctuary as of today. It's called a T-coil hearing aid transmitter system. This is the old system that we have removed from service, and the new ones, if you have a T-coil enabled hearing aid, all you have to do is, there's some sort of switch on it, you switch, and it hears the signal that's broadcast by wires that have been meticulously installed underneath the carpet. The firm that did that did a very good job, and if you don't have a T-coil enabled hearing aid, you can grab one of these little transmitters that are back there in a basket on the welcome table, and you can put it in your ear like any hearing aid, like the old system. So it's the state-of-the-art technology, and we're very proud of having it. The people who did it, put it in, did a very professional job, and we're glad to enhance the service for the people who might otherwise have trouble hearing.
So, Glenda, as you come up, because you're up next. Just so you know, for those who have hearing aids with this technology, you can go to your audiologist, have it turned on. But this means that people who need assistance listening, and this is a little high, who need assistance listening no longer, like we can now accommodate more people with it. And we also have, because this is officially the end of our stewardship drive, you get to close this out.
I get to do that. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Belinda Parks, and I've been a member for over 45 years. This church, you might say, has really been my rock. It's what keeps me grounded, keeps things real and hopeful, especially in sometimes turbulent world. So why do I pledge? Why do I support this church? Why is it so important that we do it and do it now? To me, it's very simple. It's just the right thing to do. Right now, to give you an update, we're at 56% of our budget, our budget goal of $600,000. And like I said, I've been around here a long time. This excites me to see that this is where we are. We have 121 households who've already submitted pledges, but we need everybody to pledge. Get this card, please. And again, why do we do it? Selfishly, I need this church. I think you need this church. But more importantly, Baton Rouge needs this church. Baton Rouge needs us to be visible, to be more active. We need to continue to grow. So that's why the pledge is so important, and we've been pushing very hard in October. It's what keeps us going, it's what keeps the community going. Many of you know I spent a lot of years in my career in the political arena, and we always learned in fundraising, you ask early and you ask often. And I think you know we've been doing both of those, and we're still asking, and we're going to keep asking often, more and more. because we need to reach 100% of that goal. So if you haven't done so, pick up a pledge card. We're out in the foyer. Go online, mail it in, but just do it, because you know it's the right thing to do. And if I can end with one of Donna Yelverton's quotes, which I think is wonderful, your generosity is a vehicle for soul fulfillment. That says it for me. I hope it does for you. Thank you.
This lesson is from Genesis. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as they migrated from the east, they came upon a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we shall be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." God came down to see the city and the tower which mortals had built. And God said, "Look, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language there, so that they will not understand one another's speech." So God scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore it was called Babel, because there God confused the language of all the earth, and from there God scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth.
So I was trying to hint at this. Mike, the confidence monitor's not on. But we have the full spectrum of stones to announce today. So let's start with the logistics. We're doing a memorial service to M.K. Politz. She was a member of this church on November 5th at 10 a.m., or whatever the Saturday is at 10 a.m. That does not interfere with the Alabama game at all. We also we have cards. We're going to send a card to Connie Holmes, who is recovering from a surgery. I think it's a planned surgery. And then we have, here's the happy and the sad. Kathy Smith is missing today because she got married last night. I wish you could see you could clap. She did know the person that she was marrying. So they had a very Halloween-themed wedding, so you may see errant floating around decorations. Just know that's what they're there, or to get you ready for the Halloween party next week. And also we have the death of a father of a church member. If you would place a stone. And this is a bit of a surprise. Mariah Mengelson Clark and Kayla Clark, their father had a heart attack Friday and died. This is also Solomon's father-in-law and Ann Mengelson Clark's father-in-law, and Ryan Mengelson Clark's grandfather. His name is George Clark, and we are thinking of that family today. This ritual we have is open for everybody, visitor and member alike. We invite those who wish to come forward either along the west or the east wall. Take a stone, let it represent whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind. Place it in the chalice bowl. We now invite those who wish to come forward as we place stones. say together, with hope to make this a better world, we light this flame. Its light is the symbol of the power of love.
From all that dwell beyond the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue.
Let me also say real quick, this is a little high. Online people, we knew you were there, and I forgot to tell you to type your stones into the chat, so you can still do that if you'd like. Today officially marks the end of our stewardship drive. We'll talk about that in a minute. Because this church has a long history of the drive running into months, I originally, and because I genuinely didn't see a way that we'd be fully done with every pledge in today, I titled this service, So This Is How It Ends. Think of this as the theological version, going a little deeper than just the play, the theological version of the last time you went trick-or-treating as a child. Like, is this the last time you're going to do it? Is this how it ends? Or when you finally say goodbye to someone despite the fact that they left your life earlier, or you let something go, or the last time you held your child. Is this how it ends? And will we know that this is how it ends? So we'll go a little more in depth later, but as it relates to the stewardship drive ending, I figured today would be a good time to explore what we've done, what we have yet to do, and what does it mean when we live in this ambiguous middle where things are both over and yet they're kind of not over. Also, at the end, I plan to tell you about how the Tower of Babel and the insurrection interplay. So that's your little bit of a theological, socio-civic nugget. That's your bonus for sticking through this whole thing. I should start by talking about how miraculous you have been with this pledge drive. And what I mean by that is that we have built something pretty amazing. Amidst what is likely to be another recession coming up, I hope I'm wrong on that one, but amidst that, and at a time where there is more uncertainty than we have had in many years, both societally and within this church, you have given more than anyone has ever given in the history of this church. Even though we are not done, those who have given have already given more. This is a pledge tool for those who know. I'll reference it later. Given more than anyone in the history of this church. So that is significant. You have shown your dedication to this church to stick with us throughout the good and the bad of the shutdown and the very, very clunky reopening. Not that we did something wrong, it's just hard to restart a church from shutdown. You welcomed in your 5th senior minister. You have welcomed in, to the best that I can figure, the first Black Unitarian Universalist minister to serve a UU congregation in the state of Louisiana.
Amen.
You have weathered changes to worship and Sunday school and leadership and preaching styles and social justice trajectory and even where we sign the cards on Sunday. And you've done all of that with grace and with dedication to this church. And none of this is easy. To say that another way, at a time when it is more uncertain than I have ever seen in a long time, and at a time where the church has been at the most risk of any time I have ever seen. And so many of you may have felt at economic or personal risk. At a time when the church's future may have felt uncertain, at a time that, frankly, is the great unraveling that we may be seeing in this country, you stepped up in ways I never could have imagined. So today is a day to celebrate. And you have stayed dedicated enough that we are having more visitors than I have seen since I got here. As I was reading through the pledges, over and over, I saw names that I didn't recognize. That's a big, I'm not supposed to know everyone, but I know most of the people here in who pledges. And there's a bunch of names I just didn't know. I had to go to the staff and say, who is this person? Who is this person? Who is this person? So, I don't know. Oh, I know who this person is. There are people coming to your church because you have built it and stayed dedicated to it. So the question is this how it ends? Because while this is exciting, we do not have all of the pledges in yet. The pledge drive is over, and yet it isn't over. And also, right now, some of those who carried the church these past few years, some of them are stepping back in hopes that other people can carry. And so far, you have. So I want to give you, I've been pointing to this a lot. This is our healthy distribution. I can't touch it or else I'm going to break it. And since this is the end of the pledge drive, if I break it, it's okay model. So this is the healthy distribution of church, which is this is pledging 0 to 5, 5 to 1,000, 1 to 2,000, 2 to 3,000, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, and 10 plus. You see these little white markers here? Originally, I had envisioned that those would be Legos and we'd have to change them every week, and the staff said absolutely not. You should also know, sorry Heather, the board destroyed this at their board meeting accidentally because I put it behind a cabinet and they opened the cabinet and knocked it down. So it's technically my fault, but I'm going to blame the board. So what we need is we need more people. Those of you who pledged, this is great. I just want you to know where we are. We need more people who are giving in these higher ends because there's a lot of people who need space to pledge in the lower ends because this is all that they can afford. So right now, you can just come up later if you promise not to touch it. Because we need this for the 11:30 service. This is sort of where we are. And the pledge update is if we stop the drive right now, we have to shut down the church, let the staff go, kill the programming. However, if we continue behind the scenes the drive and get the rest of the pledges in, we are going to do some of the coolest, most amazing stuff that I ever thought a church could do. So it's over and it's not over, and we're going to stop talking about it from up here. So, because I've heard you loud and clear. A month pledge drive, you're good, you're done. Also, I believe if you turn in your pledges today, you can get a Marcia Ball in a raffle for a Marcia Ball ticket. Is that correct? Yes? Yeah. All right, so today's your last day to get in that raffle. So, are we going to stop short of the pledge drive goal? Absolutely not. We're going to continue on behind the scenes to make sure we are on solid footing. But this is not all we will do. This church will continue to be a beacon of hope for people in our society who have been told that they are unworthy. We will do this over and over and over again, and we will do it joyfully, because today is a day of celebration. Not just of this church, but of your ability to look into a world awash with cynicism and to say that we are going to continue to build something powerful. So I'm going to use that. This is one of the rare times when I smoothly transition from part of the sermon into the offering. And so the offering ask today is, actually I'm going to give you some good news. So we're sharing this whole month with the Walls Project. Remember, exactly half the offering goes to us and half goes to an organization. I don't remember who last month was. Do you remember? Was it Holy Grail? I don't think it was Holy Grail. Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but anyway, I signed the check yesterday for $1,700 we sent to whatever the organization is. I'm going to study for the next service. Online people, sorry. But $1,700 is more than we have ever sent that I know of, except for like Christmas Eve to the food bank. So you are being so generous, it's phenomenal. So now, this morning's offering will be gratefully given and received.
Here we are, children at the big party, having our moment in the sun, our piece of the action, till our bodies give way and we are called home. We're one big, not always happy family, given life and breath by an eternal parent we dearly long to know. Now we have our one shot at it, our one time to be a conscious part of this ongoing cavalcade. It's not a free and easy trip. We have to live with pain as well as pleasure, temptation as well as promise, loneliness as well as love, fear as well as hope. We have to live inside a coat of skin, wrapped up in drives difficult to control and dreams difficult to achieve. And though we are the guests of honor, we don't get to set the time of the party or its place, nor are we consulted about the guest list. This is our time, and there really is just one question. What are we going to do with it?
There's a phrase in the Stewardship Consultant's report from back in August that I shared with you during worship a couple of weeks ago. And I didn't give it much thought at the time, but it's stuck in my head, and so I'm going to share this little segment with you. He said, "It is important to remember that in many cases, this church is where its members will be remembered as their most full selves, not just their family role. And this is a place where many people will want to be lovingly memorialized and richly remembered. This is an essential phase in the membership journey. Church is where members will be remembered as their most full selves. This is the place where we welcome you to be fully human, fully who you are, fully yourself. In here, you are not just a mom or a brother or the boss or a worker or queer or black or an artist. You are still all of those things, but you are not only those things. This church exists so that you can be your full self here and experiment with who you wish or hope to be. Part of the minister's job is almost like a librarian of your stories. The church is a repository for the legacies of every person who has ever joined this church. And let me pause and say, whoever over here said the Interfaith Federation, I looked it up on my phone, you were correct. So kudos to the west side of the sanctuary. That's who we gave the $1,700 last month. But the church is a repository for the legacies of every person, not just the founders or the presidents or those who give the most money, but this is a place for every member to be loved and remembered. So going back to the theme, the question of, is this how it ends? Is this how it ends when you take your last breath? It is not. While death means you are no longer with us, while it is true that that is when our grief starts, you are not gone. Your influence is still felt within these walls and among these people in ways that cannot be quantified. The reason the chairs are the way they are is because a church member who I never got to meet used to come in every week, I think on Saturdays, with a string and a ruler and measure the chairs to make them exactly how they're supposed to be. The reason there are pine trees over there is because they were planted in memory of a church member I never got to meet. The circle window didn't come from nowhere. Church members got together and talked about what theology they wanted you to see every Sunday. The pulpit I preach behind was built by a church member I never met. My job when I was the second minister was brought in because when a church member died, she left a gift to the church to bring in a second minister. Yesterday, we held a memorial service for a woman most of you have never met. Her name was Barbara Stanfill. Has anyone met her? She is not a member, was not a member of this church. She's Episcopalian. But after she died, one of her daughters, who is a Unitarian Universalist in Atlanta, reached out and wanted to see if this church could host her memorial service. Because this church exists, and because you have given enough to have professional staff, we were able to serve another Unitarian family at a time of grief in a way that gave them comfort. And you did that without knowing it. This is just one example of many of how this doesn't end even when it ends.
Let us make this earth a heaven right here, right now. Who knows what existence's death will bring? Let us create a heaven here on earth where love and truth and justice reign. Let us welcome all at our pearly gates, our freedom table, amid singing and great rejoicing. Black, white, yellow, red, and all our lovely colors. Straight, gay, transgendered, bisexual, and all the ways of loving each other's bodies. Blind, deaf, mute, healthy, sick, variously abled, young, old, fat, thin, gentle, cranky, joyous, sorrowing. Let no one feel excluded. Let no one feel alone. May the rich let loose their wealth to rain upon the poor, and may the poor share their riches with those too used to money. May we come to venerate the earth, our mother, and tend her with wisdom and compassion. May we make our earth an Eden, a paradise. May no one wish to leave her. May hate and warfare cease to clash in causes too old and too tired to name. Religion, nationalism, the false god of gold, deep-rooted ethnic hatreds, may these all disperse and wane. May we see each other's true selves. May we all dwell together in peace and joy and understanding. Let us make heaven here on earth before it is too late. Let us make this earth a heaven for each other's sake.
Right where you're seated, let's sing this hymn.
Make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy, love right through. With thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew. We will not rest till the world is won. We will not rest till our work is done. Till the world is safe and free from fear. We will not rest till peace is here. Make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are living sanctuary anew.
Would you join me in a moment of prayer and reflection? Great mystery, named and unnamed, believed in and not, that God that we know and we see, love and family and justice and hope, be with us on this day and hold this sacred space where we are gathered from afar and near to be together. Help us to know that we did not make it here alone. And I will invite you to name into this space or type right into the chat. Name aloud people who have walked through these doors who you miss and wish were still here. Please say the names aloud.
Myrtle David. Michael Dawkins.
Hold these names and so many other. May we know we are always held. Amen.
We will not rest. We will not rest till the world is won. We will not rest till our work is done. Till the world is saved and freedom gained. We will not rest till peace is here. Make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew.
Some of you may know I grew up Unitarian Universalist in a little congregation about an hour and a half east of here. And this was at the peak of its humanist wave. So we have these waves of theology that wash over. And when I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, we had all but abandoned words like God and prayer and church and even worship. I was not in a church. We called ourselves a society. By the way, this section of the service is about how the church is important to the larger society. Many of your humanist ancestors, like the ones who built this church, saw failings of modern white religion and decided that they wanted to be no part of it, and I don't necessarily blame them. I think this is where they thought they needed to be at the time in the religious context of the world that they were in. But for me, as someone who grew up amidst it, I was completely unable to articulate my religious identity in my day-to-day life. And this particular manifestation of our faith was wholly inadequate for the spiritual needs I had to survive in the world. If God is the accumulation of all of our collective understandings of meaning in this world, which is one of many definitions of God. So if you picture everyone who's ever existed and everyone who will ever exist, and everyone brings all of their understandings together, that could be an articulation of what God is. But when we as a religion got off of the theological seesaw, so to speak, it allowed people with a more fundamentalist view of God to now have twice the power to articulate their theological understanding. By us stepping off that seesaw, we exited the dialogue on what God is. And there is no doubt in my mind that our decision directly played into the rise of the religious right in the 80s and 90s, and the use of God as a fundamentalist bludgeon against so many people, especially against women and members of the LGBT communities. Even though we use a lot of those religious words, again, I don't think we are back on that seesaw yet. And it is having dangerous effects far beyond just frustrating and confusing a child in the 1980s in school. Before I go on, please remember that there is a distinct difference between a religious liberal and a political liberal. Sometimes there's overlap, but we're not talking about the same thing. A religious liberal believes that religion should not be coercive. A religious liberal insists that there is still truth being revealed, and that there are multiple truths, and that sometimes those truths interact and contradict each other. And that we have a holy obligation to work for and fix this world. Now, because religious liberals are afraid of mixing church and state, often for good reasons, we have missed a part of the narrative of what is happening in our country, and it's time we get back on that seesaw. And I've actually struggled to articulate this myself, so I'm calling other people out, but really I'm talking about me. There is not simply a rise in authoritarianism and white nationalism in this country. So long as the religious left, not necessarily the political left, abdicates our religious authority as co-equal players in this understanding of God, we will miss the narrative of what is happening. So when the insurrection happened, the narrative was that this was a secular movement of people who were trying to either overturn an election or stand up for beliefs or something. But I want you to hear, I'm not going to say it from behind the pulpit. This is the actual prayer said in the Senate chamber by one of the insurrectionists. And I want you to listen if this is a secular movement or a religious movement. The prayer said in the Senate chamber while people were afraid, "Thank you, Heavenly Father, for gracing us with the opportunity, for this opportunity to stand up for God-given unalienable rights. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for being the inspiration needed to those police officers to allow us into the building, to allow us to exercise our rights, to allow us to send a message to all tyrants, to the communists and the globalists, that this is our nation, not theirs. That we will not allow America, the America of the United States of America, to go down. Thank you, divine, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent Creator God, for filling this chamber with your white love and light, with your white light of harmony. Thank you for filling this chamber with patriots. Thank you for allowing the United States of America to be reborn. Thank you for allowing us to get rid of the communists, the globalists, and the traitors within our government." How many of you have heard this as a religious story or just as a secular story? In seminary, I attended a class by the president of Meadville Lombard, and it was called Ministry in a Post-Denominational Era. I have heard for as long as I have been an adult about the death of the church and the death of the white Protestant church and the death of religion in general. So remember also when we talk about in general, usually we're talking about a more specific group, which is why I'm saying white Protestant, because there is not a death of Catholicism and of immigrant Catholicism, and there is not a death of evangelism, and there is not evangelicalism, and there's not a death of Judaism or Islam. So there's a very specific subgenre that they're talking about, which this church comes out of. It is no longer a Christian church, but its origins come straight out of the Protestant Reformation. There was a religiously fueled insurrection in our country, and that does not sound like a time where religion is dying. However, if religious liberals, not necessarily political, if religious liberals get off the seesaw, if we let God and prayer and other religious tools that have been a part of our faith for centuries, if we give those up, then we have given twice the power to those who may want to use it for violence or for separation or as an agent of the state and of oppression. All this is to say that it matters that we exist. It matters that we are together. It matters that you are kind to each other, because churches fall apart when people are mean to each other. It matters that this church is one of many as voices out in the world saying that God is love and God is justice, and that God, I wasn't going to do this, but one of the 10 Commandments about not using God's name in vain? That's not about saying God in a sentence. That's about using the holy to oppress other people. I don't believe in hyperbolic dichotomies that split us from them. I think we are interrelated with the people that I am calling out right now. But I think that our abdication of the religious liberal voice in public discourse is part of what enabled this to happen. So this church existing matters a lot. When I scripted this, Marie, I didn't think I was going to set you up for your testimonial here. Are you good to do it there? Marie's going to talk, and then we're going to sing Down by the Riverside, and then we'll close up the service.
Well, if you haven't, I think I've doubled my my giving to the church after hearing that. It just blew my mind. We're really going to turn the corner now. Phew. First off, I must address the question, why did I give in the past? Not to the Unitarian Church, but a bit of my history. This has to do with my initial exercise of giving, and it starts in my hometown at my home church in Dothan, Alabama. Actually, I practiced the act of financial giving in 3 churches where my father was called to preach. So the seed of giving was initially presented as an act of community sharing, communal support, and has stuck with me and deepened inside of me ever since. Back to my story, my hometown story of giving. I would be with my mama in church. Daddy would be in the pulpit preaching. Mama would pull out her change purse, and if I remember correctly, Mama had rolls of bills plus change in her change purse. This first giving would be the benevolent offering for the sick and the shut-in. Mama's money would then become our offertory money to give when it came time to put our monetary offering into the offertory basket. It was the first of 2 sets of giving during regular church service. Then there was the big walk around to the offertory table type of offering. First, the congregation would get up 1 row at a time, orchestrated by the usher board, on cue, telling us when to move to the offering table at the front of the church. So 1 congregational row at a time, like our stones ritual. Both sides meeting in the middle at a central focal point, but this time in my church to give the monetary offering. Then the choir would come down from the choir area, singing, walking, giving their offering, and returning to position, always musically in sync. And then the ministers would give while the choir finished up their great getting up morning offertory song. You know that silent communal greeting that we do, or I do, I know, during our placing of the stones? For me, it is the same silent communal greeting that I had as a child during our big walk around to the offertory table. Imagine that comparison. So why do I give now to the Unitarian Church? I give because I have found home again. The biblical saying of when I was a child, I thought as a child, I understood as a child, well, that entire chapter of Corinthians 13 is about charity. I have learned that the practice of charity is called dana in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. The 3rd pillar of Islam is alms, or zakat, which speaks of donating fixed portions of your income to community, building mosques, schools, and other charity-based works. I give to the Unitarian Church because I choose to give to this church. Why? Because I truly believe in our church's principle that promotes the inherent worth of all persons, no matter their race, creed, religious belief, and/or sexual orientation. Here is where I consciously feel home lives. Before becoming a Unitarian Universalist, I pondered the question, how and where can I be a part of a spiritual community that is inclusive? Be in a community where my questions about life and the mysteries of life and death are talked about in an inclusive way and in a way that respects all beings' perspectives. Is there such a boogie wonderland as Earth, Wind, and Fire, if you don't know about that? So the religious community circle I longed for was just around the river bend. That's Pocahontas. I found my circle with all of its tentacles, and I do the circle and I think of tentacles around it, giving all folk a chance. Oh, I just lost my place. Giving all folk a chance to sit at the welcome table. That's on our church playlist. Christian therapist Robin Smith stated that your life is about choice. She poses two questions. Have you been brave? And have you found joy? She continues, and those two questions are asking the same thing of our choices in life and of the way we commit ourselves to living our lives. I invest my time, energy, and money to the UU Church because it's my spiritual family. This church resonates with my fundamental training of giving, and more importantly, it resonates with my hope for a world that is accepting, engaging, and conscious with hopes and dreams and efforts through financial commitment to make this a better, more consciously loving world.
Let's go ahead and sing. I invite you to rise and bow your heads. I know it feels like the end, but I promise you the Tower of Babel thing. So you guys sit. I got 2 pages to get the Tower of Babel, and then we're going to get out of here. And we got 4 minutes before, and the Saints don't even play. They already lost. So I don't read the Bible as predictive. Also, Marie, let's find a different spot to put your testimonial. And I don't want to not do this hymn at the next. We'll figure it out. All right. I don't read the Bible as predictive. I tend to see it more as a descriptive. So as it relates to the Tower of Babel, I don't see it as a story of a vindictive God or even the origin of language. I tend to see it as a description of what happens when certain conditions in our life turn out a certain way. What I mean by that is that when we are at the base, when we are trying to do simple things, when we are taking very little risk, we all speak the same language. It is simple and there is no tension. The higher up we get, the closer to God we get. And what I mean by that is the more complicated our religious work is, the closer we are to building heaven on earth, the closer we become to God, according to the scripture, the harder it is for us to speak the same language. When I see people speaking different languages, sharing different realities as profoundly as we are now, I tend to think of this as a spiritual opportunity. I'm sure many of you who are in relationships have noticed the closer you are to a person, sometimes the harder it is to speak the same language, right? Children, spouses, parents, siblings, the people you should be the closest to are sometimes the hardest to talk to. But I see this relating to the insurrection in a very unique way. I am certain that most of you, and maybe I'm just speaking to the white people here, I'm not sure, but I am certain most of you have family members or friends or neighbors who have gone down that insurrection rabbit hole. Am I right on this? Or I am sure you have family who have bought into some Facebook algorithmically sorted conspiracy theory that places white people at the top, disregards information, disregards science, and generally creates blockades between you and the people you are supposed to be closest to. Your family, your friends, your neighbors. We've all seen these divisions, so what is our religious response? Is this how it ends? Is it over? Are we cutting people off? Are we going to stop the pledge drive now that we are not still short of those 100 families we need in? We're going to cut all the staff in the program? No, we're not going to do it. Are we going to leave those trapped in a theological prison so restrictive and constrictive that they have no choice but to turn to violence or to regression? No, we are not. They need us to be at the religious table. What we need to do as a religious people first is just to exist, which I didn't think was going to be a threat until the last couple of years. Then we have to do the hard and arduous work of existing together among each other, which means showing up to church, be with each other, be kind to each other, welcome the visitor, especially when that visitor is someone you may be uncomfortable talking to, either because you don't want to make a mistake or because there's someone that you have decided may not be someone you want in your circle or wouldn't be a part of this church. But welcome that visitor. Then build an institution. Practice working on your soul. The healthier this church is, the more people who need a home here can find it. Then go out into the world. Go with your family and friends and the people who are on different sides of our seesaw, who need to know about a God that is all loving, who need to know that religion says that doubt and reason can make your faith stronger. Don't try to convince your family and friends to change. You don't have to convert them. You just have to be present with them to show what can happen when we work together and when we listen and when we love them. Show them that this is not how this ends. Show them that we can keep going until the whole world is okay. Never doubt that your work in this church matters. Never doubt that your work on yourself matters. Never doubt that you will be remembered here in the fullest way if you allow us to. Never doubt that there are more people who need to know that they are worthy of love, and you can make that happen. So no, this is not how it ends. We have built strains of love strong enough to get us back up to heaven and back again regardless of what language we speak. And we will be doing this for generations to come. Amen. Let's sing.
See one tiny spark, still small and bright, and hands come around to share this light. A single flame, born of the sun, faces turned toward its glow. Pass on the light, pass on the light, within these walls, steady and strong. Pass on the light, pass on the light, from night to dawn.
We're gonna hum it for a minute until we get to the chorus. We'll do the chorus again. Sometimes our computers don't like for you to sing together.
There it is.
Let's do the chorus again.
Pass on the light, pass on the light, within these walls, steady and strong. Pass on the light, pass on the light, from night to dawn, carry it on. The circle of light grows as he passed, from young hands to old and back again, sharing his wonder, wisdom of age, spreading love as it goes. Pass on the light, pass on the light, within these walls, steady and strong. Pass on the light, pass on the light, from night to dawn, carry it on. And still it shines on, year after year, the one tiny spark, too big and clear. Each generation lighting our way, forward right through the night. Pass on the light, pass on the light, within these walls, steady and strong. Pass on the light, pass on the light, from night to dawn, carry it on.
You couldn't see it from where you were standing. But outside there were two babies talking to each other. I mean, like they were. We're not going to be around to see what they build, most of us, me included. But we're building it for them. So that no one in this city or this state ever has to know that they are unworthy of love again. Go in peace. Go in love.